Ladies and gentlemen, I call back to order the 2021 Spring Representative Assembly of the Ohio Education Association. This is a good time for a quick story about Scott. I went into his office, it was a couple days ago. He was on his Zoom with NEA. He was on his phone during doing an interview, and he was reviewing a document that I sent over to him so I could get some feedback. And this was all at the same time, okay? The guy works hard. I was at my desk this morning trying to accomplish my to-do list. It was about 7:30. And Scott walks in. You know how you have these 100 things on your to-do list and you have maybe 1 or 2 left to do? He asked me a question about the 1 or 2 I still had left to do. And I'm like, oh, darn it. Brianna, you can relate to that, right? Absolutely. But that's just a couple examples of Scott's hard work. OEA's mission, vision, core value, and strategic priorities are always at the heart of his decision-making process, which always involves, above all, doing what's best for OEA, our members, and Ohio students. Delegates, it is my pleasure to introduce your president, Scott Demaro.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Good morning again, fellow delegates, OEA staff, and guests. What a year this has been. Facing the worst global pandemic in over a century, educators across Ohio have faced untold obstacles, working remotely on hybrid schedules, and now almost everywhere, 5 days a week in person, while wearing masks, practicing social distancing, and continuing to serve many students still online to keep learning going for our kids. But you've stepped up and done it. Facing risks to your own health and safety, competing pressures from administrators, politicians, and the public, and constantly changing conditions. You've held firm in your dedication to student success and in your support for one another and our union. As we conclude Teacher Appreciation Week, please know that regardless of the essential role you play in making public education happen for our kids, I have never been more appreciative of Ohio's educators or proud to be your colleague. You inspire me every single day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In reflecting back on my own experience of the past 14 months, I know that, like you, I never could have imagined what it would be like to preside over 3 virtual representative assemblies or go from spending most of my time in the car traveling between Uniserve Council, local, district, and community meetings around the state to bouncing from one Zoom meeting to another. While it's certainly been challenging, I've really found this to be a year of learning, growth, and opportunity. Technology has given us opportunities to connect in new ways, and that has been such a blessing during these difficult times. I can't wait to see you all in person. But I believe in my heart that we are now better positioned than we were before the pandemic to bring transformative change to our state and fulfill the promise of great public schools for all of our students. This coming school year will mark the 175th anniversary of the founding of the Ohio Education Association. Preparation for that landmark has led me to do some reading and reflecting on our past and considering where we're heading in our future. I came across a quote from former OEA President Don Wilson in the introduction to a history written in 1988 of OEA's transformation from professional association to the state's largest and most powerful labor union. Don said, "By shaking members' hands, looking into their eyes, and listening to their concerns, I came to realize that they, more than I, understood the mission of OEA in representing the uncompromised voice for public education. Understanding that mission was the common thread that bound together OEA members no matter how large or small their unit, no matter how distant their proximity or diverse their background." My friends, your uncompromised voice for public education remains our common thread today. Threats to public education abound today, just as they have throughout our history. They come in many forms, some familiar, others novel. Privatization and outsourcing of our jobs, the continuation of the unjust state takeover law that continues to deprive the communities of Youngstown, Lorain, and East Cleveland their voice in running their schools. The persistence of standardized testing, even in the midst of a pandemic that deprives our students of time for learning, creativity, and imagination. Continued expansion of undemocratic, unaccountable, privately run charter schools. One threat to public education that has been particularly pervasive across the country this year has been the expansion of private school voucher programs. We in Ohio are all too familiar with the consequences of what are now 5 separate programs costing taxpayers and children $450 million a year that are premised on the big lie that kids in so-called failing schools need a ticket out to save them. OEA, you know that's simply not true. First, we know that 90% of the time, students attending private schools with vouchers perform worse, not better, than their peers who remain in the same local public schools that they would have otherwise attended. Second, we know that schools that lose the most students to vouchers serve a disproportionate number of students in poverty. And as a result of the loss of funding to vouchers, it is those high-poverty students who remain in our public schools who are most deprived of the resources they need to be successful. And to make matters worse, their communities have to pay a higher rate of local property taxes to make up for the loss of state revenue. And perhaps most egregious of all, we know that students in these communities who accept vouchers to attend private schools are more likely to be white than those who remain in our public schools, meaning that vouchers actually exacerbate white flight from diverse school districts. Put simply, Ohio's EdChoice voucher scheme is nothing less than state-sponsored racial segregation. We have an obligation as educators and as an organization long committed to principles of fairness, inclusion, and democracy to speak truth to power when it comes to racial, social, and economic injustices in our education system. We simply cannot stand by when legislators seek to expand unjust policies like school vouchers, as some powerful state senators are seeking to do now. We also cannot stand by when the safety and right to learn and thrive is deprived of any of our students based on their race, ethnicity, immigration status, family background, socioeconomic status, religion, ability, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Our Black students' lives matter. Our LGBTQ+ students' lives matter. It is our duty and sacred obligation to stand up for every single one of our students. Sir Isaac Newton, in speaking of scientific progress, wrote, "If I have seen further than others, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." My friends, we are here in this moment at the vanguard for our students, fellow members in public education, because we are standing on the shoulders of the giants who came before us in OEA and in our labor movement. Those who convened in 1847 to form an association committed to the advancement of the teaching profession and our system of common schools. Those who walked picket lines in communities all across the state in the 1960s and 70s to win fair contracts for teachers, professors, and education support professionals. Those whose political activism led to the passage of Ohio's collective bargaining law in 1983. And those, including many of you in our virtual assembly hall today, who took to the streets to defend that law when John Kasich and his allies tried to gut it in 2011. At this time, 10 years ago, thousands of OEA members, in solidarity with our brothers and sisters across the labor movement, were collecting over 1.2 million signatures to place the unfair, unsafe Senate Bill 5, a piece of legislation that would not only have hurt public employees and our families, but everyone in our communities, on the ballot. I was in my 20th year as a high school social studies teacher and local union activist that year. And like so many of you, I remember feeling scapegoated, angry, and fearful over the effort to completely undercut all I had worked for. But that 9-month struggle also left me invigorated, connected, and empowered in ways I hadn't previously thought imaginable. What's that Kelly Clarkson lyric? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. In our collective struggle, we stuck together, and we came out stronger than before. Let's take a look back at how we did it.
Teachers, firefighters, police officers, nurses, craftsmen filled the Ohio State House grounds Tuesday. Only a small portion of the crowd initially was allowed through the doors to listen to the hearing.
It's not to let people in. This is outrageous.
While the legislators were upstairs figuring out how bad they were going to make Senate Bill 5 and who they were going to attack, we were locked out of the process and literally locked out of the State House.
These are teachers. These are cafeteria workers. These are bus drivers. These are police. These are fire. We want people to participate. They come down from all parts of Ohio today to participate in government, and the doors are locked. That is wrong.
When you look back on it, you can't say they didn't warn us, but no one expected this all-out war on teachers, firefighters, police officers, social workers, nurses, and every state, county, and municipal worker in Ohio.
There have been a lot of promises made to people that will never be kept. And I'm here to say, look, let's deal with reality here. What we're trying to do is to restore some power in management. We want to narrow the scope of bargaining. We want to eliminate the right to strike, but we want people to be able to talk, sit down, negotiate, get through this whole thing. I think that Shannon Jones is doing a good job.
So people came from all across Ohio to testify and protest this horrible bill.
I'm here to stand up for not only my rights, but my students' rights.
What's not wrong with Senate Bill 5?
I just keep hearing horror stories about what the state was like before collective bargaining.
I think it will affect quality in the classroom. It will affect quality of teaching.
It takes the teacher's voice out of the mix. In the end, it will hurt the children of Ohio.
I am a Republican and I am against this bill, and I can't believe that anyone would say that this bill and this law would be beneficial for students.
The mood is angry because people in Ohio are understanding what's happening. Senate Bill 5 decimates collective bargaining, and people are getting it.
Fight for your rights. Fight for the right to stand as a union. Fight for the right to strike if you must. Fight for the right to speak with some thunder. Fight for the right when the laws are unjust.
If Issue 2 or SB 5 did one thing, I think what it did do, it's just the opposite of what it was meant to do. It brought people together.
We came together, formed a coalition that's unprecedented in the state of Ohio. Private sector workers, public sector workers, allies, recognizing that what happened on this vote would be critically important to the future of the state of Ohio and to our brothers and sisters in other states.
There were people that weren't even in unions that wanted to help. They knew that it was wrong, and they joined our cause.
We Are Ohio brought together public sector unions, private sector unions, allies, political activists, community leaders of various sorts, the faith community, in a struggle that was all about policy, not about politics.
It was about the real people, the firefighters, the police, the nurses, the teachers, and the bus drivers. Truly, we are Ohio.
I was kicked off of the committee because the Senate president exercised his management right to throw me, his roommate and friend, off the committee to get the bill out today.
Next to fall was Republican Senator Scott Oastlager, who was removed from the Rules and Reference Committee in order to get the bill to the floor.
Dr. King said that the arc of moral justice is long, but it bends towards justice. The arc of justice will bend towards what is right, what is good, and what is just, and I urge the defeat of this un-American, unpatriotic, and unjust bill, Senate Bill 5.
Senate Bill number 5 is passed and the vote is verified.
In the House, the outcome was no different. Despite strong opposition from the public, they forced SB 5 through.
It's now law. Senate Bill 5 is now law.
$231,000 signatures is a very high bar.
And what we're going to do, we're going to work like hell and fight like hell to do it. That's all we can do.
In the spring and early summer, we had only about 2 short months to get over 230,000 signatures. Our members were chomping at the bit to get started, to get those petitions signed. Our training sessions were jammed with volunteers. They took petitions out to county fairs, community events, held events of their own, had signing parties, all in an effort to get as many signatures so that we could repeal Senate Bill 5.
They held a petition signing today in Wildwood Preserve Metro Park, as well as 9 other locations across the state.
I did the breast cancer awareness. I stood with my pink wig and my little pink tutu on the State House steps. And as people were crossing the steps, at that point I had 40 counties. And within 2 hours, I had 837 signatures, which was pretty amazing.
Thousands of people from all over the state showed up here in Columbus to hand-deliver petitions to the Secretary of State's office.
They marched through Columbus along with semi-truck carrying the signed petitions. About 230,000 signatures were needed. Well, they got a little more than that.
Today, we stand together to send a clear message to those extreme politicians who support Senate Bill 5. And we say 1,298,301.
Wow, that's the most signatures ever turned in on any measure of any kind for any purpose in Ohio in the entire history of the great state of Ohio.
The OEA trained 8,000 petition circulators, which collected 73,500 member signatures and 180,000 total signatures.
We demonstrated at the State House in the winter. We marched in the parade in June to turn in those petitions. And we took that energy and we took it to the streets.
We Are Ohio and OEA had volunteers, people on the ground, going door to door and doing phone banking every night and every day. We did things that we've never done before, but it was the price that we had to pay, and we would willingly do it again in the future.
This is a bill that is unfair, unsafe. It's going to hurt the middle class. And the climate that's been going on has really hit home, and I wanted to get involved.
Do you think we can win? Yeah. Do you believe we can win?
I have to admit that canvassing wasn't on the top of my list of things to do, but if we were going to be successful, we had to get on the ground, we had to meet face-to-face with the voters, and we had to make sure we turned those voters out to vote the right way. I ended up going to Elyria, Worcester, Mansfield, Howland, Youngstown, Dayton, I canvassed so much that by the end I thought I was starting to turn into a tent.
We are.
Thank you for putting your boots on the ground, opening up your mouths, and speaking just how unfair, unsafe, and how this is not good for all Ohioans.
We kept our focus, and the response was greater than our expectations. The message about being fair, being safe, and meeting community needs resonated with the public of Ohio. Collective bargaining makes sense to them. It's a fundamental value, a fundamental right, and not something you can wipe away with the stroke of a pen.
I'd like to say if you want to keep quality teachers in Ohio, you need to vote no on issue 2 to repeal.
It's not about balancing state budgets, and it's not about finding money. It is to silence the voice of working families and union members all across this country and in Ohio. That's what it's about, and it's time we change that.
I've been knocking on doors, I've been making phone calls, and we think we're on the way to victory, but we got to make sure that people get out and cast that vote.
After talking with hundreds of people, I knew that we were going to be successful on November 8th and that people were going to do the right thing because we own this campaign.
We have been in this together from the beginning. In the cold of winter, on the day we were locked out of the State House, to that warm spring day we marched down Broad Street to turn in 1.3 million signatures in order to exercise our citizens' veto of Senate Bill 5. We are Ohio! And tonight, Ohioans have spoken and spoken clearly.
In Ohio, with 89% of precincts reporting, it's a blowout. The union stripping law has been recalled.
They just called it. Issue 2 is gone. I think people are happy, Rachel. It's great news. This is a huge victory for the people of Ohio, for the middle class, for working people. This is great.
In a landslide, issue number 2 has been defeated. The union-busting Senate Bill 5 will not become law in the state of Ohio. This is a huge victory for the middle class in the state and in America.
It's clear that the people spoke. Yeah, listen.
Clearly and emphatically, Ohioans have said to the politicians who passed Senate Bill 5 and supported Issue 2, we don't turn our backs on the people who watch ours. We are...
I knew that the opposition was going to put lots of TV ads on at the end, which they did, that they're going to continue to tell half-truths. But I knew that we had the people, that we met with people face-to-face, and that we were going to be successful. I was so confident that, I don't tell anyone, but 2 weeks out, I predicted it was going to be a 60-40 vote. I think I was right. And I attribute that to everybody who went out and did that face-to-face work. And I hope that going forward, that's something that we remember does work, and that we continue to do that in all the campaigns that we're going to face, because we're probably going to have to do it some more.
We achieved in the We Are Ohio campaign enormous amounts, thanks to the volunteers, the members, our allies, all coming together to create a successful campaign.
We are emboldened and impassioned to continue to fight whatever they may throw our way. And so we won a great battle, but the war isn't over.
The challenges will still come, but we are tested now and will be better prepared than ever.
This victory is one that will be clearly a highlight of my career, and I believe it is a success that will be etched in the memory of those who worked in the We Are Ohio Coalition and those who are members of the OEA. It will be etched in our memories forever.
We humbly dedicate this story to everyone who had the focus, the determination, and the commitment to defeat SB 5 and Issue 2. Rest if you must, but don't you dare quit. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep leading. Thank you very much for everything that you have done.
So, we've been seeing a number of you raising the question in the chat as to whether this video will be made available. And yes, it is being posted on OEA's YouTube page. So you go to Ohio EA on YouTube, look at videos, and you will find it there. But I share this video with you not to be nostalgic, although I certainly am as I watch it. About a third of our members have joined OEA since the Senate Bill 5 fight. And listening to war stories may not resonate with everyone. But our victory of 10 years ago should serve as a reminder of the possibility of our collective power. Our question for today is, how are we going to use it? If we use our collective voice, 120,000 strong, we can end the state takeover law. We can fix our broken report card system, stop the overuse and misuse of standardized tests, and end voucher expansion. And we can do even better. OEA, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to fully and fairly fund our public schools. Over the past few years, we've been working closely with a bipartisan group of legislators, public education advocacy organizations, and community allies to build support for the Fair School Funding Plan, also known as the Cupp-Patterson Plan, as part of a larger strategy to ensure all kids in the state of Ohio, no matter where they live or what they look like, have public schools that inspire their creativity, unlock their potential, and nurture their dreams. After years of living with an inequitable, inadequate, and unconstitutional system, we're closer than we've been since the first DeRolf decision was handed down in 1997 to finally having a school funding formula that rationally calculates what it costs to educate a student and provides funding from the state that fairly accounts for the needs of each community. The Fair School Funding Plan is built into the budget bill adopted by the Ohio House and is now under consideration by the Ohio Senate. The House-passed budget phases the plan in over 6 years. But even at the end of the first 2 years, most districts are better off with a 1/3 funded plan than they would be under the governor's fully funded original proposal or current law. When fully phased in, Ohio schools will receive nearly $2 billion in additional revenue per year and have a funding formula that is transparent, predictable, and fair. What makes our funding situation even more promising is the historic level of investment in public education, as Jeff talked about earlier, made by Congress under President Biden's American Rescue Plan Act. Over the next 3 years, Ohio's pre-K through 12 schools will receive $4.5 billion to address disrupted learning caused by the pandemic and meet a wide variety of student needs, along with an additional $1.1 billion for higher education, targeted toward helping students access post-secondary educational options. These American Rescue Plan funds will allow us to save teachers and education support professionals jobs and hire new staff to reduce class sizes, provide nursing, counseling, mental health, social work, tutoring, and other student supports where they're needed most. Importantly, President Biden's plan specifically mandates that educators and their unions, it is stated by name, we are mentioned by name in the law, unions, have a say in how this money gets spent. And states and local districts have to explain how your voices were used in the development of their spending plans. In addition, the federal funds from the American Rescue Plan and previously passed relief programs provide the down payment we need to invest in the future of Ohio's kids. And the Fair School Funding Plan allows that investment to be sustained over the long term. As a state, Ohio is uniquely positioned to leverage that temporary federal investment into long-term educational growth and even build on it. because most Ohio school districts will receive more additional annual funding from the Fair School Funding Plan than they will under the American Rescue Plan. That means whatever additional investments districts make using federal money can be maintained and grown once the Fair School Funding Plan is fully implemented. But the Ohio Senate needs to do the right thing. And it's up to all of us to hold their feet to the fire. If the Senate screws this up, and it's certainly not outside the realm of possibility, we must be ready to take the fight directly to our fellow citizens, just as we did in repealing Senate Bill 5. Our kids deserve the best, our hearts and our work. This is our moment, OEA, our time to stand strong for the students, for the schools our students deserve, to advocate for social, racial, and economic justice, to defend academic freedom from those who can't handle the truth, to protect our democracy from gerrymandering and attacks on voting rights, to ensure our kids and communities have the schools and futures they demand and deserve. We've been through the darkness of a pandemic and are on the verge of emerging stronger, with more support from parents for the value of our work than ever before. Think about it. For all the intense debates over reopening schools over the past year, two messages are clear. Parents appreciate the role of caring, qualified, committed educators in their kids' lives. And functioning public schools are recognized as integral in the life of every community. On top of that, public polling shows approval of labor unions and the labor movement at the highest level in decades. And it is you, our members, and us, our union, who are the people parents trust most with these decisions. It's up to us, acting together, to leverage that strength for our students, for one another, and for public education. We've done it before, OEA, and we will do it again. That concludes my report. Thank you very much.